The shooting of President John F. Kennedy stunned the nation. For his wife, Jackie, the loss of her husband was both earth-shattering and deeply personal. Here's what she said about those final moments.
November 22nd, 1963 changed everything. But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling was even worse. Secret Service agent was there when Jackie collapsed in private. He heard her confession about the real reason she stayed in that blood-stained suit. It wasn't just about showing America what they'd done. There was something else, something she never told anyone. For 60 years, her bodyguard kept that secret. Now, he's revealed why Jackie really never recovered. The truth about her final years will destroy everything you thought you knew. Jackie Kennedy was born on July 28, 1929, not in the place her parents had planned. They were supposed to welcome her in a Manhattan hospital, but a last-minute change during a summer stay in the Hamptons brought her into the world at Southampton Hospital instead. Her father, John Blackjack Bouvier III, was already a rising star on Wall Street, while her mother, Janet Norton Lee, came from a powerful banking family. That summer, the Bouvier had just bought a new house in Southampton, and Jackie's birth turned into a small press event. The hospital kept her name listed simply as Baby Girl Bouvier, and the family remained there for 14 days. Even in infancy, her world was lined with privilege, but the cracks in her parents' marriage had already begun to show. Her baptism took place at St. Ignatius Loyola Church in Manhattan, a place known for its grand design and upper-crust congregation. It wasn't just a religious moment, it was social theater. That's where she was officially named Jacqueline, the first girl in the family with that name, chosen to honor her father. That church would later host both her confirmation and her funeral. It became one of the few constants in a life filled with sharp turns and emotional distance. Jackie started riding horses when she was just 3. Her mother pushed her into the saddle early. Janet, a polished horsewoman with her own trophies, believed it added grace and discipline. By 5, Jackie was already making waves, winning a blue ribbon at the Devon Horse Show. She was placed in the under-9 class, and society pages picked it up. Her success gave Janet even more bragging rights, but for Jackie, horses became something else entirely. They were a shield against home troubles. Her father's drinking and gambling had started brewing tension, and Jackie clung to her pony, Buddy, for a sense of control. Horses stayed close to her for life, not as showpieces, but as sanctuary. In 1936, the family left the Hamptons behind and moved into a massive Park Avenue apartment that stretched across 2 floors. It had been developed by Jackie's grandfather, James T. Lee. On the surface, it looked like a dream home, but it wasn't fully furnished. Her father, despite his Wall Street image, was already struggling with money. Jackie and her sister Lee would roller skate through the empty rooms. Jackie's clever side appeared early. She would bribe Lee with small treats to distract their nanny so she could sneak into neighbors' apartments and borrow their toys. That kind of sly independence would stay with her. But beneath the marble floors and chandeliers, things were falling apart. Her father's money trouble became public. His gambling debts and affairs were printed in the papers. He was seen with chorus girls. He faced bankruptcy. Jackie heard the shouting behind closed doors. It all came to a head in 1940 when her parents finalized their divorce. She was just 11. She turned even more toward her pony. She turned away from her mother. She never stopped loving her father, but the betrayal stuck. It shaped how she looked at men, at love, at trust. Her parents had separated in 1936, right when she was 7. The final split dragged for 4 more years. The Wall Street crash of 1929 had shattered their wealth, and John's charm had given way to alcohol, mistresses, and humiliating headlines. Jackie felt torn. She loved him fiercely, but she also felt ashamed. She and her sister were forced into a split life, shuttling between Manhattan's luxury and Long Island's isolation. Cycled wire story. It read like she'd been there, felt the fabrics, seen the colors, and talked to the women who wore them. She had, and it showed. At a time when most women in the newsroom were confined to typing up wedding announcements or party invites, Jackie slipped in something different. Her voice was clever. Her observations were bold. And suddenly, she wasn't just a girl with a camera anymore. She was a writer with perspective. Then came 1953, the coronation of hers from behind the curtain, her tiaras under Buckingham light. Readers back home felt like they were there. But they printed it, and they kept giving her assignments. That same year, Jackie was crouched in foxholes in Korea. Wearing a helmet, hauling a camera, Smoke didn't submit them to her paper. The Times-Herald had a conservative stance. Her editors wouldn't have run them, but she took the shots anyway, captured the faces of black men and women demanding equality. She kept the negatives hidden. Some she never showed anyone. But they were there. Evidence that Jackie saw what others ignored. She knew what side she was on, even if she couldn't say it out loud. At the same time, she was ghostwriting for her mother's charity columns. She'd bounce between embassy dinners and late-night typing sessions, juggling deadlines and dinner invitations. She turned down marriage proposals from men who called her decorative. She wanted more. She wanted to be known for what she did, not how she looked, sharp, always unexpected. She asked a young senator named John F. Kennedy what gave him hope. They met again, and something changed. In May 1951, they had their first real conversation at a dinner party hosted by Charles Bartlett at 341 Q Street in Georgetown. A political wife. She filed articles for Women's Home Companion even during her honeymoon. She covered hearings, she kept writing. She balanced two lives between 1953 and 1960. Ghost wrote JFK's letters, polished his speeches, wrote about fashion for Vogue. In 1957, she wrote a piece about the pillbox hat. It wasn't just a fashion note, it shaped an era. By 1960, she was 1957, and John Jr. on November 25, 1960, the world watched. Those babies were part of the campaign, but Jackie guarded their privacy fiercely. She knew what fame could cost. In 1961, she became First Lady. And everything changed. But she brought her newsroom instincts with her. She hired Pamela Turner as her press secretary, a first. She controlled images, limited access, planted stories where they'd do the most good. By 1962, her Life magazine cover became the best-selling issue of the year. She had turned style into strategy. The wardrobe that sparked outrage for costing $50,000, it was 80% American-made, and it helped boost U.S. fashion exports by 15%. She toured the White House with Charles de Gaulle in fluent French. He called her the most intelligent American he'd ever met. Reporters called it Camelot. She called it her job. She never stopped writing, never stopped shaping. Even the book she never published, the one on European royals, was filled with interviews from Monaco and Liechtenstein. When JFK proposed in 1953, she knew what she was giving up, but she also knew what she was building. The woman the world saw in white gloves and pearls had once crouched in the trenches of Korea. She had snuck civil rights photos past her editors. She had fought for a byline, had typed by candlelight, had said no to men who didn't respect her mind. When Jackie Kennedy walked into the White House in January 1961, she didn't see a home rich in American legacy. She saw faded walls, mismatched furniture, and barely any trace of the presidents who had lived there. It felt hollow. Determined to change that, she quietly assembled a fine arts committee led by Henry Francis Dupont. Their goal was simple, but enormous: bring back the soul of the White House. They began searching through private collections, historical societies, even international auction houses. In 1962, Jackie herself stepped into the spotlight, bidding at Sotheby's for a desk once owned by Thomas Jefferson. It cost $25,000, an eye-popping amount at the time, but to her, it was priceless. She didn't stop there. She asked wealthy donors to give up their antiques for the sake of national memory. Slowly, room by room, the White House became a museum that told America's story. And then, she let the country in. On Valentine's Day, 1962, Jackie appeared on a television tour of the newly restored White House. No commercials, just her, guiding the nation through its most historic rooms. She spoke softly, pointing out the Lincoln bed, the Madison china, the Jefferson desk she had fought to secure. 56 million people watched, 1 in every 3 Americans. Donations poured in, around $1 million, and the world paid attention. That year, Jackie received a Special Trustees Award from the Emmys, the only First Lady to do so. Lady Bird Johnson accepted it on her behalf. Jackie had done something no one expected. She'd turned a government building into a shared cultural treasure, using television not for politics, but for memory. A few months before that broadcast, in November 1961, the East Room of the White House had already felt the shift. Jackie hosted Pablo Casals, the famous cellist who hadn't performed in the U.S. since Franco rose to power in Spain. He had been unofficially blacklisted for years. Jackie didn't care. She invited him anyway. That night, he played Mendelssohn, Schumann, Couperin for 200 guests and a room filled with political tension. She wanted the arts to be free, even if it meant upsetting powerful people. The next year, she invited Leonard Bernstein to compose Mass for the National Cultural Center. She was shaping a legacy in silence, through music, through courage. But behind the glamour and charm, something devastating was growing. In August 1963, Jackie gave birth to a baby boy, Patrick Bouvier Kennedy. He arrived early, 34 weeks, and weighed just 4 pounds, 10.5 ounces. He had respiratory distress syndrome, and back then, there was little hope for infants born that way. He died just 3 days later. The public barely knew. President Kennedy had the television removed from Jackie's hospital room so she wouldn't see the coverage. While grieving the death of her child, Jackie also quietly battled Addison's disease, a rare disorder that drained her energy. Yet, she kept working, restoring the White House, guiding the cultural center, grieving in silence, still serving in public. That same year, Jackie took on something few knew about. She personally edited the White House guidebook, writing and revising pages about historic artifacts. She made sure the Lincoln section was exact. The guidebook became a bestseller. It raised more money for preservation and set a new tone for how the White House spoke to the public. Years later, she would take that skill into her new life, working as a book editor in New York. But it all started there, between her personal tragedies, quietly crafting something meant to last. Then came the darkest day, November 22, 1963, Dallas. Jackie wore a pink Chanel-style suit, raspberry color, with navy trim and gold buttons. The hat matched. Then the shots came. One bullet shattered the back of President Kennedy's head. Blood sprayed across Jackie's clothes. She never changed. She boarded Air Force One like that. She stood beside LBJ as he was sworn in, refusing to remove the stained suit. When asked, she answered coldly, "I want them to see what they've done." The suit remains sealed away in an archive, locked until the year 2103. It is the most haunting outfit in American history. At Parkland Hospital, Jackie didn't let go. She held her husband's hand even after the doctors had done all they could. She whispered, "I love you," again and again. Secret Service agents Clint Hill and Roy Kellerman stayed close, protecting her from cameras, reporters, even from reality. She stayed by the stretcher long after he was gone. She couldn't speak. All she asked for was her children. The trauma didn't fade. Jackie later confessed that she could still hear the shot in her dreams. "The shot rang forever," she said in private recordings. Therapists today say she showed every sign of post-traumatic stress: sleeplessness, flashbacks, emotional numbness. Her family tried to help. Her mother kept her shielded. But Jackie carried that pain for the rest of her life, tucked inside letters, visible in how she moved through the world. Quiet, watchful, wounded. Just 3 days after the assassination, arranged every detail of the funeral. She demanded a riderless horse. She insisted on a flame that would never die. On November 25, 1963, over 1 million people lined the route. 3 million more watched on television. She lit the eternal flame herself. The horse, named Blackjack, walked the procession without a rider. A president had died. A wife had lit. The story shook everything. His version conflicted with the Warren Commission's single-bullet theory. His silence, it turns out, had lasted as long as Jackie's. After the White House, Jackie tried to build a different life. In 1964, she left Washington and moved to New York. She turned down the widow's pension. She didn't want charity. She wanted purpose. In 1975, she began working at Viking Press as a consulting editor. Over 19 years, she helped publish nearly 100 books: memoirs, histories, art collections. She even used her influence to help save Grand Central Station from demolition. Later, she joined Doubleday. Her first big success there? A manuscript by Michael Jackson that became a bestseller. She became a mentor to authors, a protector of stories. But her personal life remained complicated. In 1968, she married Aristotle Onassis on his private island. Hustler magazine printed them. They spread everywhere. Rumors swirled that Onassis leaked them out of spite. Jackie was crushed. Around that same time, it came out that she had a long relationship with John Warnecke, the man who had designed JFK's grave. Their secret affair lasted almost 4 years. It ended just before she married Onassis. In later years, she would say she felt she had betrayed her husband's memory. By the 1980s, her editing career peaked. At Doubleday, she worked on historical collections, rare memoirs, and even secured a deal with the Nabokov estate in 1982. That acquisition brought prestige. Jackie balanced it all: editing meetings, literary scouting, parenting Caroline and John Jr., all while staying far from the spotlight. And then, in 2023, Paul Landis spoke again. He revealed the full truth about that bullet. It wasn't just a fragment, it was whole, and he had moved it. His admission sent shockwaves through historians and conspiracy theorists alike.